Time slips, whispers of the forgotten and the future. Time, so solid, so immutable, or so we tell ourselves. It's comforting to think of it as a straight line, each second neatly following the last, leading us forward in an orderly march. But what if that's a lie? What if time is not a line, but a fragile veil, and sometimes, just sometimes, that veil thins? When it does, the past and the future bleed into the present, leaving behind glimpses, echoes, and shadows of things that should not exist. These are the moments we call time slips, and they are not for the faint of heart. Imagine walking down a familiar street and suddenly finding yourself in another era, surrounded by people in clothes you've only seen in history books, buildings that shouldn't be there, and an air that feels heavy, oppressive, as if reality itself is holding its breath. Then, in a blink, it's gone. The world snaps back to normal, but you're left wondering if you've truly returned, or if a part of you was left behind. Time slips are not mere stories. They are cracks in the foundation of what we believe to be real. For those who experience them, the world will never feel stable again. The haunting atmosphere of time. What is it about these moments that terrifies us so deeply? It's not just the strangeness, though that alone is unsettling. It's the feeling, the oppressive weight of another time pressing against you. Witnesses often describe an unnatural stillness, as if the air itself is holding its breath. Sounds become muted, colors fade, and the world feels wrong, like stepping into a dream that is not your own. And yet, it feels more than real. It feels as though the world you've stumbled into is demanding to be remembered, to leave its mark on you forever. The Moberly Jourdain incident, a journey to Versailles, or to the past. In 1901, two women, Charlotte Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, visited the Palace of Versailles, a place steeped in history, beauty, and, as they would learn, an unsettling connection to the past. As they wandered the grounds of the Petit Trianon, the air changed. A heavy stillness enveloped them. The gardens, so vibrant moments before, seemed dull and lifeless. Then they saw them, figures in 18th century clothing, walking as though unaware of their presence. The women later described seeing a woman sketching, her clothes distinctly from the time of Marie Antoinette. They heard strange music, like something out of another era, faint and melodic but haunting. Everything about the scene felt wrong, and an unshakable dread followed them as they left the area. Later, when they returned to the same spot, nothing was as they remembered. The gardens were alive again, the strange figures gone, as if the past had swallowed itself whole. When they shared their story, skeptics dismissed them as fanciful, but they both maintained their account until their deaths. What did they witness that day? And why did they feel as though the past had seen them, too? The Liverpool time slip, a city where time collides. Liverpool is a bustling modern city, but for some, it's also a place where the past refuses to stay buried. In 1996, a man named Frank was shopping in Bold Street when something strange happened. As he walked toward a bookstore, the air seemed to thicken. The modern cars vanished, replaced by old-fashioned vehicles from the 1950s. The people around him wore clothes from another time, and the street itself looked different. Frank walked into what he thought was a modern store, only to find it stocked with goods from decades earlier. Confused and disoriented, he stumbled back outside, and just like that, the world returned to normal. The cars, the people, and the buildings were as they should be. But Frank knew what he had seen. He was not alone in his experience. Bold Street is notorious for similar accounts. Why this city? Why this street? Does Liverpool sit on some tear in the fabric of time? The warning in the air. Time slips don't just happen in old cities or historic places. They happen in unremarkable locations. Quiet forests, abandoned roads, even mundane homes. Those who experience them often speak of a profound sense of unease, as if the event is not accidental. It feels deliberate, like time itself is reaching out, pulling them into a story they were never meant to witness. What are time slips? Are they glimpses of parallel worlds, evidence of time folding in on itself, or something darker? Something watching us from outside of time, manipulating it for reasons we cannot comprehend? A whisper from the past. The next time you feel a sudden chill, when the world grows too quiet, when the air feels too heavy, remember, time may not be as stable as it seems. And if you find yourself walking down a familiar street only to step into a world that is not your own, be careful. Sometimes, people who slip through time don't come back. Theories and implications. What lies beneath the time slips? Time slips challenge everything we believe about reality, forcing us to confront questions that have no comforting answers. Why do they happen? What causes them? And perhaps most chillingly, are they accidental, or is someone, deliberately pulling the strings? 1. Parallel worlds colliding. One of the most compelling theories is that time slips are evidence of parallel universes, realities that exist alongside our own, separated by a thin, invisible boundary. Occasionally, these boundaries weaken, allowing glimpses into another timeline. But these aren't just passive observations. For those who experience time slips, it feels as though they have physically entered another world. This raises a haunting question. If we can slip into their world, can they slip into ours? And if so, who or what might already be here, living among us, unnoticed? 2. Fractures in time. Another theory suggests that time itself is not linear but more like a tangle of threads, some of which occasionally cross or fray. These fractures might explain why time slips are often localized to specific places, areas where time has broken or become unstable. Certain locations, like Bold Street in Liverpool or the Palace of Versailles, may be hotspots for these fractures. But why? Some speculate that moments of intense emotion, tragedy, violence, or joy can imprint themselves on a place, creating echoes that loop back into the present. When you step into these places, you're not just walking through space, you're walking through the residue of history itself. 3. Time as a living entity. A darker, more chilling theory posits that time is not a passive force but a living, conscious entity. Time slips, in this interpretation, are not accidents, they are deliberate. Time itself may be playing with us, testing the boundaries of what we can endure. The oppressive weight, the silence, the suffocating dread reported by witnesses, all could be signs that time is aware of us, watching us, toying with us. What would it mean if time could think, feel, and act? And if it can, what does it want? 4. Messages from the beyond. Some believe that time slips are messages, warnings from the past or future sent to guide or protect us. These messages may not always be clear, but they are powerful. For instance, could the Moberly Jourdain incident have been a warning about the fragility of power and excess reflected in their glimpse of pre-revolutionary France? Could the Liverpool Times slips be echoes of a world trying to tell us something important, something we've overlooked? If these are messages, the question becomes, who is sending them? And are they trying to save us or warn us to stay away? 5. Manipulation by hidden forces. The most unsettling theory is that time slips are not natural phenomena at all. They may be caused by forces we do not understand, hidden technologies, advanced civilizations, or even extraterrestrial beings experimenting with the fabric of reality. If someone, or something, has the power to manipulate time, they are not bound by the same rules as us. They can observe, interfere, and perhaps even rewrite the course of history. For those who experience time slips, the feeling of being watched is almost universal. What if they are being observed, studied, or even marked by these forces? What if the time slip is not the anomaly, but the first step in a far larger plan? The implications. Are we safe? Time slips are more than just anomalies. They are cracks in the foundation of reality. They force us to ask uncomfortable questions. Is the present as stable as we think? Is the past truly behind us, or is it alive, waiting for moments to bleed into the now? And if the future can be glimpsed, does that mean it is already written, or can it still be changed? For those who experience time slips, the world becomes a far stranger, darker place. They live with the knowledge that the boundaries of reality are thinner than they seem, and that one wrong step could send them spiraling into the unknown. A final whisper. If you ever feel the air grow heavy, if the world around you seems to falter, pay attention. The past and the future are closer than you think, waiting in the shadows of time's web. And if you find yourself slipping into a world that is not your own, tread carefully. You may not find your way back, More eerie accounts of time slips. Time slips are not isolated phenomena. Stories of people stepping into other times, or having time step into theirs, are scattered across history and geography. Each account deepens the mystery, suggesting that these events are neither random nor rare. The Phantom Café, a glimpse of wartime Paris. A British couple visiting Paris in the 1970s stumbled upon a small cafe while exploring a quiet street. The cafe was peculiar, filled with people dressed in 1940s attire, smoking cigarettes, and drinking coffee from chipped cups. A band played music that sounded oddly dated, and the air was thick with the scent of old wood and dust. When the couple tried to return the next day, the cafe was gone. The street was there, the layout unchanged, but the building was empty and derelict. Later research revealed that the cafe had indeed existed during World War II. Had the couple slipped into the past, or had the past briefly reached out to touch the present? The Vanishing Hotel in France. In 1979, two British couples traveling through France stopped at a quaint, old-fashioned hotel. The staff and other guests were friendly but dressed in outdated clothing. There were no telephones, no modern conveniences. They enjoyed their stay, marveling at the authentic charm of the place. On their return trip, they tried to find the hotel again but discovered it no longer existed. Locals insisted that no such hotel had been in operation for decades. The photos they had taken during their stay showed no signs of the building or the people they had encountered. Where had they spent the night? The Bold Street phenomenon. Liverpool's temporal hotspot. Liverpool's Bold Street has become infamous for time slips, with numerous accounts from residents and visitors alike. In one case, a woman stepped into what she thought was a modern clothing store, only to find herself surrounded by 1940s fashions. She purchased a coat, but when she returned home, the garment appeared far older than what she had seen in the store. In another account, a man walked out of a modern shop and found himself in the bustling 1950s. Cars, people, and advertisements all confirmed the era. Why Bold Street? Some speculate that it lies on a fault line or an area of magnetic disturbance, creating a temporal rift. Others believe it's simply a place where time is thinner, where the past and present overlap like poorly aligned photographs. The Disappearing Soldier. A chilling military account tells of a soldier in World War I who vanished during a nighttime patrol. His comrades reported seeing him walk ahead and then, quite suddenly, fade into thin air. He was never found, and no traces of him were recovered. Soldiers in the area later reported strange sensations. Moments where the air felt heavy, where they heard whispers in the darkness, as if something was watching. Could the soldier have walked into another time, a fragment of history or a future battlefield? Or was he swallowed by something more sinister, something that exists outside time entirely? The village that wasn't there. A hiker in Scotland reported stumbling upon a village that didn't appear on any map. The buildings were rustic, the people dressed in clothing centuries out of date, and the entire area seemed untouched by modernity. When he asked for directions, the villagers spoke in an unfamiliar dialect and seemed wary of him. He followed their instructions but quickly realized they were nonsensical, leading him in circles. When he returned to where the village had been, it was gone. No houses, no people, just an open field. Was it a fragment of the past lingering in the present, or something entirely outside the bounds of time? A moment that won't let go. One of the most unsettling aspects of time slips is their aftermath. Many who experience them feel as though they are being watched afterward, as if the past, or whatever force caused the slip, has left a mark on them. Some report vivid, recurring dreams of the time they visited, seeing the same people and places over and over, even when awake. Others speak of feeling detached from reality, as though a part of them never fully returned. What happens when you don't come back? For every story of someone returning from a time slip, there are whispers of those who don't. People who vanish without a trace, leaving behind only the unanswered question. Where did they go? Were they lost to the past, stranded in a fragment of history that refuses to let them go? Or did they fall into the future, a world too alien for them to survive? And then there's the darkest possibility of all, that they stepped into something outside of time entirely, a void where they are neither remembered nor forgotten. where they simply cease. A final haunting thought. Time slips remind us of one terrifying truth. Time is not ours to control. It is not a straight line, not a stable structure we can rely on. It is fragile, fractured, and filled with shadows we cannot comprehend. And sometimes, when we least expect it, it reaches out for us. Tonight, as you sit in the stillness of your room, remember, if the air grows heavy, if the world seems to pause, if you hear echoes of footsteps that shouldn't be there, don't linger. Move quickly, because time might be watching. And if it decides to pull you in, you may never come back. Additional angles, layers of the unknown, time slips, and emotional residue. Some researchers believe that time slips are tied to powerful emotional imprints left on specific locations. Tragedy, joy, or intense fear may create echoes of the past that remain trapped, replaying in cycles like a broken record. When someone steps into these areas, they momentarily align with the frequency of that past event, experiencing it as though they've been transported there. This theory suggests that the slip isn't random. The emotions of the experiencer, fear, curiosity, grief, might act as a catalyst, aligning them with the energy of the past. But it also raises a chilling question. What happens when the emotional residue is malevolent, when the slip draws you into a moment of despair or violence? Can you become trapped, just another ghost in the echo? Temporal echoes and time travelers. Another angle to consider is that time slips might not be passive phenomena, but the result of deliberate manipulation. Could advanced beings, humans from the distant future or visitors from other worlds, be experimenting with the fabric of time? Are these slips the byproduct of their experiments, accidental windows left ajar? This theory is both fascinating and unsettling. If someone is manipulating time, what is their purpose? Are they trying to guide us, warn us, or simply observe? Or are they testing the limits of what can be changed, regardless of the consequences for those caught in the ripples? The role of memory in time slips. A more grounded perspective suggests that time slips might be linked to memory and perception. The brain is an extraordinary yet fallible machine, capable of creating vivid hallucinations and reconstructing events with terrifying accuracy. What if time slips are a psychological phenomenon, a momentary breakdown of the brain's ability to process the present? But this theory doesn't explain the physical evidence. The coats purchased from vanished stores, the photos that show places that no longer exist. It also fails to account for the consistency of these experiences across cultures and centuries. If time slips are a trick of the mind, why do they always feel so real? And why do they leave behind traces of the impossible? The darker implications. The scariest possibility is the one no one wants to say aloud. What if time slips are deliberate traps? What if certain places, desolate streets, forgotten ruins, abandoned houses, are designed to catch those who wander too close? The stories of people vanishing entirely, never to return, lend weight to this fear. Perhaps time slips are not mistakes, but predatory mechanisms, designed to lure the curious and claim them forever. The conclusion, a warning beyond time. Time slips are not just strange occurrences. They are cracks in the foundation of reality, moments when the world we know falters and reveals something else. Whether they are echoes of the past, experiments from the future, or deliberate traps laid by forces unknown, they remind us of one terrifying truth. Time is not ours. It is a force we barely understand, and its boundaries are not as solid as we believe. For those who have experienced a time slip, the world will never feel stable again. For those who haven't, the question lingers. Would you recognize it if it happened to you? The next time you feel the air grow heavy, the sounds around you muffle, and the world seems to hold its breath, take heed. You might be standing on the edge of a tear in time, and once you fall through, there may be no coming back. So tread lightly, dear traveler, and remember, time is always watching.